You wake up and your mouth tastes like iron. The room smells of rotting flesh and perfumed linen, the stench rising like a ghost from beneath your sweat-soaked sheets. Your legs no longer move the way they once did. The gout has ravaged your joints, your skin oozes from old ulcers, and somewhere beneath the weight of velvet and velvet-lined shame, your once mighty body has begun to collapse inward. The air around you stirs with the hushed panic of attendants too afraid to speak, their eyes fixed not on your words, but on your swollen hands and the blood seeping through your bandages. You are Henry, King of England, supreme head of the church, and the most powerful man in a realm of trembling subjects. But now you are something else, something monstrous, something dying. As your breath rasps against a ribcage once built for war, a different enemy takes hold: time, rot, and memory. And the truth of your legacy is beginning to fester in the corners of the court, just as your limbs do beneath the covers. This is not just the story of a king. It is the story of what a system does when it worships a man above God, and how a body can become a battleground for a kingdom's sins. You will come to see that power does not rot cleanly. Before we journey into these forgotten tales of survival and suffering, if you enjoy uncovering the hidden truths of history, please consider liking this video and hitting that subscribe button for more content like this. And please comment below to let me know where you're listening from. I find it incredible that we're exploring these ancient stories together from different parts of the world, connected across time and space by our shared curiosity about the past. He is born in June of the year 1509, second son to a king who never expected this particular child to rule. His elder brother, Arthur, is the heir. Henry is the spare, raised not for the burden of power, but for the quiet strength of the church. He speaks Latin as easily as breath. He can quote from Thomas Aquinas by his 12th year, and yet, when Arthur dies in the cold spring of 1502, everything changes. The system of monarchy does not wait for grief to settle. It reshapes the boy before he has finished mourning. Henry is 13 when the weight of expectation is fastened to his shoulders like iron plate. His education turns violent. Lessons in mercy are replaced with lectures on sovereignty. At court, his body is pampered, cloaked in silks, and perfumed with rare oils. But his mind is sharpened like a blade. He is trained to fear disobedience in others and suppress weakness in himself. He learns to see women as instruments of legacy. Servants become shadows to him. Even the air around him changes. He breathes in power and exhales demand. His father, the cold and calculating Henry VII, teaches him not by example, but by absence. Love is a foreign thing in this royal household, buried beneath layers of ceremony and calculation. By the time Henry turns 17, he is not just a man. He is a vessel for a kingdom's insecurities, a golden boy gilded with desperation. His marriage to Catherine of Aragon is the first act of theatre in a reign destined to rot from within. She is the widow of his brother. The match is political, necessary, and loaded with the tension of failure before it begins. The union must produce a male heir, or England will burn. And so he enters the system not just as a ruler, but as a slave to its ancient fears. The monarchy depends on his body, his seed, his ability to dominate and create. His identity is no longer his own. He belongs to history, and history is merciless. What happens next would be unthinkable if it were not so carefully documented. To understand the full magnitude of Henry's descent, we must first understand the system that fed him. The Tudor monarchy is not merely a political machine. It is a ritualistic organism fed on spectacle, obedience, and blood. Every movement within its court is choreographed. every silence weaponized. As king, Henry VIII is not just the head of this institution, he is its flesh. But the institution has no soul. It does not love him, even as it bows to him. It serves only stability, and stability demands heirs, demands war, demands unflinching control. In this system, marriage is not intimacy, but infrastructure. Henry's queens are chosen like timber evaluated, weighed, and cut down when they fail to support the dynasty's roof. The same system that exalts him as supreme head of the church also teaches him that failure, be it political, sexual, or biological, is treason. And treason must be punished. The terrifying brilliance of this institution is its invisibility. The crown makes monsters with velvet gloves. You can see the system's rot begin with Catherine. She bleeds but gives no son. Her piety, her nobility, her sacrifices all collapse into dust under the relentless machinery of dynastic pressure. Henry petitions for annulment, claiming divine punishment for marrying his brother's widow. When Rome refuses, he splits the entire nation in two. Thus the Church of England is born not out of faith, but out of obsession. A king, desperate for a son, tears apart Christendom and claims godhood. And from that moment, the system begins to consume him. With Anne Boleyn, there is fire. She is no silent consort. She is sharp, clever, and politically aware. But this too is unacceptable. She gives him Elizabeth, but not the promised male heir. Her inability becomes her guilt. Her thoughts become her treason. You are Henry now, watching her executed on the scaffold, the sword slipping clean through the neck you once kissed. The crowd watches silently, not with pity, but with fear. They know what you know, that power, once tasted, does not forgive failure. Jane Seymour gives him Edward, finally a son, but her death in childbirth teaches Henry a terrible lesson. Love kills. Or rather, to love within this system is to risk weakness. Jane is embalmed, her body hollowed and preserved. Her image, however, is immortalized as the ideal silent, yielding, fertile. She is the model by which all other queens will be measured, and she is dead. As his body swells with excess, his soul begins to contract. Gout cripples him, his ulcerated leg begins to rot, excreting pus and dark blood that even his most loyal physicians refuse to inhale without gagging. His meals grow heavier, meat piled on meat, seasoned with fear. He no longer walks freely. He is lifted, carried, wheeled. His eyes burn with rage at the courtiers who avoid his gaze. And yet they obey. They always obey. What you must understand is that Henry does not rule alone. The court enables him. The bishops rewrite scripture to please him. The nobles marry off their daughters to satisfy him. The physicians lie about his health to prolong his illusions. And the wives are consumed like ceremonial offerings. Anne of Cleves is discarded for being plain. Catherine Howard is destroyed for being young. Catherine Parr survives only by playing nursemaid and theologian. This is not random cruelty. This is the logic of a system that teaches its king to see himself as both God and prisoner. Every wife is a test. Every advisor a potential betrayer. Every morning begins with pain. Every night ends with whispers of poison. Henry's paranoia is not madness. It is systemic. The institution has taught him that mercy is a liability, that to survive, he must destroy even those he once loved. But something else begins to curdle beneath the silk and steel of his rule, the contradiction of glory built on grief. While Henry commissions tapestries depicting biblical triumphs and paints himself larger than life in court portraits. His kingdom starves for truth. His palaces gleam, yet his conscience festers. The Church of England becomes his mirror, crafted in his image, reshaped to forgive his sins, structured to serve his will. But mirrors can crack. The same system that empowers him also isolates him. The court is a maze of whispers and false smiles. The courtiers laugh at his jokes, but behind tapestries they gag at the stench of his leg. The people cheer his processions, but curse his taxes. And worst of all, the weight of what he has done never leaves him, not truly. By the late 1540s, Henry is a man of brute contradictions. He can no longer ride a horse. His armor must be widened yearly. Yet he still imagines himself a warrior king, the embodiment of English virility. Behind his back, some call him the old lion. Others call him the bloated tyrant. Neither label is wrong. His mind grows paranoid. The executioner's block, once reserved for traitors, becomes a revolving stage for wives, friends, poets, and once trusted counsellors. Thomas More, executed for holding to Catholic truth. Thomas Cromwell, beheaded for engineering a marriage Henry regretted. No one is safe. The axe does not discriminate, only obeys. And always, Henry watches, never weeping. What the institution has done is horrific, but methodical. It has taught him that the only way to maintain control is to destroy deviation. And so Henry becomes an island within an island, cut off, adrift, lost within a network of spies, flatterers, and sycophants. He turns increasingly to theological justification, commissioning doctrines that justify his supremacy, punish dissenters, and reinforce his divine mandate. And yet, his body refuses to lie. The ulcer on his leg becomes a wound of prophecy. The smell alone clears rooms. It leaks in court. It leaks in Parliament. It leaks into history. Chroniclers of the time describe it with horror. A sore grievous beyond healing, a well of corruption. Some believe it is a divine curse. Others dare not speak of it at all. There are moments when he weeps in private, when he asks if God still favours him. But these moments are brief, swallowed by ritual and silence. He still feasts, still demands music, still demands wives. But the music grows quieter, the laughter fades quicker, the wives, one by one, disappear. Resistance becomes impossible. No one survives by confronting him. Even his daughter Mary, fiercely Catholic, must tread carefully. Elizabeth, bright and observant, learns early the art of silence. Courtiers learn to bow more deeply. Servants learn to disappear into the walls. One account tells of a young groom assigned to clean the king's chamber pot. The stench nearly suffocates him. He vomits. Henry has him whipped, then promoted, then ignored. The randomness of cruelty is its own kind of control. Everyone walks on glass. And Henry deep down knows he is no longer a man, but a symbol held together by robes, prayers, and fear. The tapestries still show him as godlike, but inside he knows. He feels the rot crawling up his bones. He dreams of wolves in the dark. He wakes with a scream that no one dares acknowledge. This is not just a story of physical collapse. It is a moral collapse, a spiritual collapse. The institution that crowned him has devoured him from the inside out, and it is not yet finished. What came after defied even the darkest expectations of the court. By the winter of 1546, Henry is no longer a man who walks. He is hauled from room to room in a custom-built litter, carried by trembling servants who can no longer meet his eye. The ulcer on his leg now tunnels deep into muscle, emitting a stench so foul that even his most loyal attendants press scented cloths to their faces. The dressings must be changed multiple times a day, revealing blackened flesh, blood-clotted gauze, and pockets of pus, so deep they seem to whisper of death. Surgeons argue whether to amputate, but none dare suggest it aloud. They know the king's rage, and no one wants to die with their hands soaked in royal blood. His food is still rich: swans stuffed with spices, pies filled with venison, tankards of spiced wine. But his appetite is erratic. He eats with the desperation of a starving man, as if gorging himself can slow the approach of mortality. His sleep comes in fits, disturbed by fevers and phantom screams. He shouts names of the dead in the night: Anne, More, Cromwelland, then wakes with clenched fists and a command for more blankets. The cold haunts him. He demands fires in every room, yet he still shivers. And then his mind begins to splinter. He suspects plots where there are none. He accuses his own son, Edward's tutors, of treachery. He grows obsessed with omens. A comet seen over London is taken as a sign of judgment. He orders the Tower reinforced, orders the coinage debased, orders yet another round of executions. The ink from the warrants dries faster than the blood. The last year of his life is a descent into silence. His courtiers speak only when spoken to. His physicians administer narcotic sopium and syrup of poppiesto dull his pain. Sometimes he falls into a stupor for hours. Other times he flies into fits of rage, screaming until blood vessels burst in his cheeks. His eyes yellow, his teeth blacken, his belly distends. Some say he resembles a corpse propped upright by sheer will. In January of 1547, he orders the execution of the Earl of Surrey. His final gesture of authority is not a law or a sermon or a royal decree. It is death. A signature stained by trembling, swollen fingers, a seal impressed by a hand barely able to grip. The king, now nearly immobile, watches his command carried out from bed, his leg leaking onto linen. When the end comes, it is not noble. He slips into unconsciousness for 2 days. His breathing becomes shallow, irregular. No priest dares speak of last rites. It is treason to suggest the king is dying. His attendants merely wait. The chamber is hot with the reek of infection and old wine, the stench of a dying god. On January 28th, Henry VIII dies in the early hours of the morning. There is no great outcry, no divine revelation, only silence. And something else, the sudden release of an entire court from fear. The system he built does not collapse. It pivots. It does what it always does: finds the next vessel. Edward, the sickly boy king, is crowned before the linens from his father's deathbed have even cooled. The court begins rewriting history that same week. Painters retouch portraits, chroniclers omit the stench. The image of Henrith warrior, the scholar, the lion remains intact. But the truth, festering like his leg, cannot be so easily buried. His legacy is one of blood and glory, of choirs and screaming wives, of velvet robes soaked with rot. He changed England forever, yes, but the cost was so steep that even his bones seemed reluctant to rest. It is said that when his coffin was transported to Windsor, it cracked along the route, and blood leaked from the wood onto the chapel floor of Sion Abbey, where dogs were found licking it. History remembers the king, but it forgets the system that made him monstrous, and the people who could not look away. Others tried to clean what he left behind, but some stains do not lift. After Henry's death, the throne passes to his 9-year-old son, Edward VI. The boy is bright, pale, devout, and already dying. The system, now reeling from the loss of its monstrous architect, does not pause. It clamps itself around Edward like a vice, puppeteered by Protestant regents, eager to deepen the reforms Henry had begun, but never fully understood. The Church of England, born of a king's lust and fear, becomes something sharper, more doctrinal, more punitive. Latin vanishes from services. Catholic priests flee. The Book of Common Prayer is imposed. Icons are smashed. The ghosts of monasteries whisper from the fields where their stones were scattered. Mary follows. Henry's eldest daughter, the one whose mother, Catherine of Aragon, was cast aside like spoiled meat. Raised on exile and silence, Mary inherits not just the throne, but the trauma of her lineage. She burns Protestants in public squares and signs each death warrant with the same hand that once wrote gentle prayers in Spanish. She is trying to restore a world that no longer exists, trying to resurrect a mother from ashes, trying to undo the system her father built by becoming just as brutal. They will call her Bloody Mary. They will forget what was done to her. Then Elizabeth, the daughter of Anne Boleyn, raised with a mind like fire and a heart trained to beat silently. She watches, she waits. She learns from her father's mistakes, but never fully escapes his shadow. She rules longer than he ever did, but even her reign, full of poetry and empire, is haunted by his model of control. She never marries, never trusts too deeply. She reigns alone. That, too, is a lesson from Henry. What the Tudor dynasty reveals is this: a system of power built on fear and obedience will always require fresh bodies. It does not die with a tyrant, it simply changes shape. And today, echoes of that system still reverberate. We still reward leaders who dominate rather than listen. We still immortalize rulers while ignoring the victims crushed beneath their decisions. We still build institutions that protect those at the top while punishing those who resist. Henry VIII did not invent tyranny, but he perfected the performance of it, glorious on the surface, festering beneath. His was a reign of contradictions, the Renaissance king who banned books, the defender of faith who broke the church, the lover of music who silenced dissent with screams. And now you know what it smelled like. Now you know how it sounded when velvet dragged across stone floors wet with blood. Now you know how it ends, not with a roar, but with a wound that never closed. And the question we are left with is not why Henry became a monster. It is why we kept crowning them.